The line cook called me on a Wednesday night. His name is Big Mo. He never calls after closing. He said, "Roy, you need to come down to the diner Friday." I asked him why. He said, "Just come. Wear your apron, sit at the counter." Then he hung up. I stood in my kitchen holding a dead phone. Something in my gut went tight. I didn't know it yet. That call would change everything. Welcome back to the Forgotten Father. Grab your coffee. Get comfortable. Remember this. The people in these stories had every chance to do right by the ones who raised them. They just chose wrong. Drop a comment. Be sure to subscribe. You're going to want to stay till the end. My name is Roy Callahan. I'm 70 years old. I live above the original diner in Scranton, Pennsylvania. Been here my whole life. Never wanted to be anywhere else. I've worn the same brand of canvas apron for 50 years, patched twice at the strings. I wear thick forearm scars from decades at the grill. My pocket watch stopped running in 1994. I never replaced it. Some things you keep on purpose. For 51 years, I've worked the grill at Callahan's Diner. I flip eggs. I wash dishes when we're short-staffed. I know every regular's order before they sit down. Walk up to me in the parking lot. You'd hand me a to-go order, not a restaurant group's balance sheet. That's exactly how I like it. Quiet men get underestimated. Underestimated men get to watch everything. I started as a dishwasher when I was 14. I worked my way up slow, one Friday shift at a time. There's a line cook named Big Mo who's worked here nearly as long as I have. He calls me the old man because everybody comes to me eventually anyway. A busted fryer. A supplier who's late. A regular who needs someone quiet to talk to. I helped Mo's daughter get through nursing school, quietly, years back. He's never forgotten it. Mo is the closest thing this diner has to an early warning system. If something's wrong, Mo knows before the schedule does. My son Grant runs Callahan's Kitchen now, the restaurant group I built from this one diner. Grant went to business school, not a kitchen. He climbed fast inside the company he inherited a stake in. Within 6 years, he was CEO over 34 locations. He wears a chef's coat that's never once touched a grill. He calls me Pop in a tone that sounds like he's doing me a favor. Grant was 7 when I taught him to crack an egg one-handed at this very counter. He stood on a milk crate watching my hands like they were doing magic. He asked me once why I never wanted a fancier restaurant, someplace with tablecloths. I told him some places don't need tablecloths to matter. He said that made sense to him. He was 7. It made more sense to him then than it seems to make to him now. It started small. With Grant. At Thanksgiving 2 years back, he asked me to eat in the back office because the dining room was being photographed for a company anniversary post. I ate in the back. Nobody else at that table saw anything wrong with that. At his own restaurant opening last spring, he introduced me to a food critic as my dad, still flipping eggs at 70. I let it pass. A man doesn't build a life keeping score on openings. At Christmas, Grant mentioned, in front of the whole family, that he'd always wondered why a man could run a grill for 51 years and never open someplace nicer. My wife Ellen's fork stopped halfway to her mouth. I told him some men aren't looking to move up from what they're good at. He said, "Sure, Pop," in the tone of a man agreeing with a child. I let it go. I never minded being underestimated by Grant. Not until the company's 40th anniversary dinner. Callahan's Kitchen turns 40 this year. The company planned a big dinner, investors flying in, food press invited. I wasn't seated with the honored guests, not officially. I was there because Mo told me to come. I stood near the counter in my patched apron, watch chain loop through my belt, a cup of black coffee in my hand. Grant took the microphone around 8 o'clock. He thanked the investors. He thanked the regional press. Then he gestured toward the counter, right at me. He said, "And let's hear it for where it all started." Guys like my dad, still holding down the original grill. A ripple of polite laughter moved through the dining room. Guys like my dad, like I was part of the counter Stools. Ellen wasn't in the room. She'd stayed home with a cold. I don't think she heard him say it. I want to believe that. I clapped along like everyone else. Inside, something old and quiet woke up. I almost walked out right then. I got as far as my old truck in the parking lot, keys in the ignition, engine off, hands on the wheel. I sat there a long time. Part of me wanted to just drive home. Forget the whole night. Let Grant have his laugh, the way I'd let him have 100 small laughs before. I thought about selling my remaining shares altogether, walking away clean, letting the company be whatever Grant wanted it to be. Then I thought about a winter 46 years ago. A stranger named Odell Briggs, who came in soaked and broke one Sunday night, and how my own father fed him without a word about payment. I sat with that memory until it settled something in my chest. I turned the truck off completely. I walked back inside. Grant kept talking after I sat back down. He announced the company was optimizing community outreach spend ahead of a sale to a national restaurant conglomerate called Hartwell Dining Group. A $93 million acquisition, pending final valuation. He said streamlining legacy programs twice. Investors nodded like that meant something good. I know what those words mean, coming from a man like Grant. They mean cutting whatever doesn't show up on a spreadsheet. I've watched executives like him my whole career. They talk about efficiency the way a landlord talks about renovations. Confident, reasonable sounding, never once mentioning the tenants. I found Mo by the walk-in cooler after the speeches ended. He didn't smile at me. He said, "Roy, walk with me." We went out back by the dumpsters. He pulled a folded printout from his apron. He set it in front of me like it was something dangerous. He said, "Grant's optimization plan ends Sunday night community supper. All of it. Starting next month." I stood very still. Mo didn't rush me. He let the silence sit there as long as it needed to. That's one of the things I've always respected about him. He knows when a man needs a minute before he can talk. Sunday night community supper feeds anyone who walks in the door, free, no questions, no receipts. It's been running every single Sunday for 33 years. Most people at the company think it's some old marketing gimmick that phased out years back. Most people don't know I fund it myself. I need to back up. 46 years ago, my father ran this diner alone. One Sunday night, a stranger named Odell Briggs came in soaked from the rain, no coat, no money, asking only for a glass of water. My father sat him down and fed him a full plate, no charge, no questions. He told me later that a full stomach costs a diner nothing compared to what it means to the man eating it. I never forgot that a stranger's dignity is the only reason our family business meant anything at all. I spent the next few decades saving quiet, a little at a time, the way you'd fill a jar with coins nobody's watching. 33 years ago, I had enough set aside to fund Sunday nights permanently across every location we'd open. I asked the company to call it simply Community Supper, vague enough that nobody connected the old man at the grill to the man who'd endowed it through a personal trust. I liked it that way. Dignity shouldn't need applause. My lawyer, a woman named Paulette Marsh, wrote one clause into the company's founding trust at my insistence, back when I first brought in outside investors decades ago. As founding trustee, I retain 58% control and veto power over any change to core company programs. Nobody at corporate reads founding trust documents from 3 decades ago. Grant certainly hadn't. If you've made it this far, do us one quick favor. Subscribe. A lot of people watch without ever doing it. It costs you nothing. It means everything to us. Thank you, genuinely. I went home that night. I told Ellen everything. She's 68 now, still sharp enough to win the diner's Friday crossword pool every single week. She listened without interrupting, which for Ellen is its own kind of alarm bell. When I finished, she said, "So Grant wants to cut off free suppers for a sale bonus." I said, "That's the shape of it." She said, "And he called you part of the counter Stools in front of a room full of investors." I said he did. She said, "Well, I hope he enjoys the surprise." Then she went back to her puzzle. Like we'd just discussed the weather. I didn't sleep much that week. I called Paulette Marsh first thing Monday. She's handled my paperwork for 26 years and doesn't rattle easy. I told her what I'd found. She went quiet, which for Paulette is rare. Then she asked one question. "You want to stop it quiet or stop it loud?" I told her I wanted it stopped for good, and I wanted Grant to understand exactly why, in a room he couldn't spin his way out of. She said, "Then we do this at the full shareholder review. On the record, board present." I met Paulette in her small office above the hardware store on Adams Street. She spread the trust documents across her desk. She read the controlling clause twice, out loud, slower the second time. She looked up at me and said, "Roy, do you understand what you're holding here?" I said I thought so. She said, "You're holding the only thing in this company that Hartwell's lawyers can't out-argue." She said the clause was airtight, drafted clean. No ambiguity a corporate attorney could exploit. I asked her what I should do with it. She said nothing, yet let Grant build the whole case for cutting it. Let him put it in writing, in a boardroom, on the record. Then you use it once, and you use it right. Over the next 5 weeks, I did what I've always done. I stayed quiet. I got organized. Paulette pulled the original trust documents, notarized copies, the whole paper trail going back 3 decades. I asked her to schedule the shareholder vote in front of the full board. No shortcuts. No private sign-off. Grant, thinking it was a formality, agreed right away. I kept working my regular shifts through all of it. I flipped eggs. I washed dishes when we were short. Mo brought me coffee every morning and asked why I looked like a man carrying something heavy. I told him it was nothing. He gave me a look that said he didn't believe me for a second. But he let it go, because that's what Mo does. Grant walked past me twice that month at the counter. He said morning, pop both times, same tone as always. Like I was furniture that happened to speak. 2 weeks before the vote, the Hartwell dining team toured our flagship location. 4 of them, in matching gray blazers, clipboards in hand. They walked the dining room like they already owned it. Grant led the tour personally. He walked them straight past the Sunday supper sign-up sheet, no stopping, past the wall of thank you notes from regulars. One of the suits asked what that sheet was. Grant said, legacy promotion, being reassessed. I was restocking the coffee station nearby. None of them looked up at me twice. I finished the station. I went and sat in my truck a minute, just breathing. My granddaughter Nora called me on a Sunday. She said Grant had been stressed, working late, talking about a big opportunity that would put us on the map nationally. I asked if she knew what the opportunity was. She said something about a company sale, nothing specific. I asked if she was doing all right. She said she was tired, but happy. I didn't tell her what I knew. Some things a grandfather protects for as long as he can. The shareholder review landed on a Thursday afternoon. Same dining room as the anniversary dinner, 5 weeks earlier. 10 board members, Paulette as counsel. Grant at the podium with a slide deck, the Hartwell Dining Group logo glowing in the corner. I sat at the counter again, patched apron. Watch chain looped through my belt, same seat as always. Nobody in that room expected me to say a single word. Grant walked through his plan. Ending Sunday night community supper would save the company $2.3 million a year in unbilled food costs across all locations. That would clear the books ahead of the Hartwell valuation. He said it would let the sale close at the full $93 million instead of a reduced offer. He said, the numbers simply make more sense this way. Like arithmetic could excuse what it actually meant. A board member near the window, a woman named Constance Felt, asked what happens to families currently relying on Sunday suppers. Grant said they'd be directed to a community resource list. Constance asked which resources, specifically. Grant said his team was still finalizing that mapping. Everyone in that room knew what that phrase meant. Nobody said it out loud. Paulette stood up. She said, "Before this vote proceeds, there's a matter of standing I need to raise." She looked at me. She said, "Callahan's Kitchen's founding trust grants a permanent program veto to its founding trustee. That trustee is in this room." Grant laughed. Actually laughed, before he understood what she meant. He said, "Paulette, my dad's been retired from operations for years. There's no active trustee involvement." Paulette slid the notarized documents across the table. She said, "The founding trustee is Roy Callahan." The room went quiet in a way I've only heard once before. The Sunday night my father fed a soaked stranger without a word about payment. Grant turned around in his chair. He looked at me the way you look at a burner you left on for hours without noticing. I stood up. I walked to the front of the room, past the slide deck with its clean bar charts, past the Hartwell logo glowing on the screen. I said, "My name is Roy Callahan. I've worked this grill for 51 years. I served the very first Sunday supper this diner ever gave away." I let that sit a second. Then I said, 46 years ago, my father fed a soaked stranger with nothing in his pockets, no charge, no questions. I built this program so no one would ever have to depend on luck for a warm meal, the way that stranger did." Grant's face had gone the color of the printout Mo handed me by the dumpsters. He said, "Pop, I didn't know." I said, "No, you didn't." I said, "You called me guys like my dad in front of a room full of investors. You never once wondered who I actually was." I said, "That's not an accident. That's a habit. You don't ask questions about people you've already decided don't matter." I turned to the board. I said, "As founding trustee, I am formally exercising my veto." I said, "This is over the elimination of Sunday night community supper." I said, "That program stays fully funded, exactly as it has for 33 years. Then I looked at the Hartwell logo on the screen. I said, "If this sale needs $2.3 million taken out of a hungry family's Sunday plate, then the math is wrong." I said, "Find $93 million somewhere that isn't a stranger's dinner." Constance asked Grant directly whether his personal bonus was tied to the valuation number. Grant said the structure was standard industry practice. He didn't say no. Another board member asked when he'd learned about my controlling stake. Grant said he hadn't known until that moment. Constance asked whether he'd read the trust documents before proposing the cut at all. Grant didn't answer that one. His silence answered every question better than any word could have. Nobody clapped. Nobody laughed. Paulette closed her folder. The quiet click sounded louder than applause. The board voted 9-1 against ending the program. Grant was the one. Within a month, the board opened a review into how the Hartwell deal had been structured. They wanted to know if Grant's bonus depended on the program ending. It did. Grant resigned as CEO before the review concluded. Nobody forced him out in public. I made sure of that. I didn't want a spectacle. I wanted the program safe, and the truth on record. I got both. Mo wasn't allowed to speak at the meeting, but he was waiting by the kitchen door with 2 other cooks when it ended. Word travels fast at Callahan's. He told me later that Constance Felt walked out first. Constance stopped in front of the 3 of them. She said only, "Sunday suppers stay funded. Ask Roy Callahan about it sometime." Mo said he had to lean against the wall for a minute. He said he'd known me 30 years and never once suspected. I told him that was rather the point of the whole arrangement. 2 weeks before that, Nora had mentioned her father was under a lot of pressure lately. I hadn't asked why. I regret that now. A grandfather should ask why, even when the answer is complicated. Nora called me that same week. She was furious, but not at me. She said, "Grandpa, why didn't you tell me any of this? Not the trust, not the program, not what he was planning?" I told her the truth. I said I didn't know how to tell my own grandchild that her father would cut off hungry families for a bonus. I said I didn't know how she'd take hearing it from me instead of seeing it herself. She was quiet a long moment. Then she said, "You should have trusted me sooner." She was right. I told her so. Grant tried calling me twice in the weeks after. I let both calls go to voicemail. The first message was an apology, stiff and rehearsed, the kind a man writes down before he says it. The second was shorter. He just said, "I hope you're still proud of me somewhere in there." I didn't call him back either time. Some apologies are for the person giving them, not the person receiving them. I let him have that one on his own. Grant and his wife separated 4 months later, though I never learned the full reason and never asked. I didn't push for any of it. I never said a word against him to Nora, not once, even when I had every right to. Some things a father has to let his son arrive at on his own. He came around faster than I expected once the numbers went public. Regulars at the diner started thanking him by name at the counter, not knowing how close he'd come to taking Sunday nights away from them. The morning after the vote, I got to the diner at 5 like always. I fired up the grill, same pan, same worn spatula. A young server I'd never spoken to before stopped by the counter. She said, "Are you Mr. Callahan, the founder?" I said I was. She said her family had eaten Sunday supper here for 3 straight years after her father lost his job. She said she just wanted to shake my hand. I shook it. Then I went and restocked the syrup station. It had been running low for a week. It wasn't going to fill itself just because a board vote happened. Sunday night community supper is still running. It fed over 9,000 people last year across every location. No bills. No questions. Paulette had a small plaque installed by the original counter a few weeks after the vote. It doesn't say company estate anymore. It says, simply, founded in dignity. Maintained in quiet. I still work the grill. I still wear the patched apron. Grant, when I see him now, mostly at Nora's school events, nods and says Dad in a different tone than before. It's a small thing. It cost him something to learn it. I let him